All right, so if you haven't watched the latest episode of The Epic Economist, he touched a lot on some of the topics that I have been exploring in the last couple of weeks, especially mental health and financial problems, because we all have them. Our paychecks are never going to stretch far enough. But some of the sample videos that he put from real life people into this last episode, especially the guy that's been looking for a job for about a year and a half, has applied to 3,000 jobs, has gotten 9 interviews, and doesn't know what he's going to do. To people that are established, that have lost their jobs, both the father and mother, they have kids, and they can't find anything. And the reason for that is always intentional. There aren't enough good jobs out there in our society to sustain a society at the levels that we're accustomed to. More and more older people with senior level accept service industry jobs. You're going to have to learn how to say, do you want fries with that? And then have someone half your age tell you, put the fries in the bag, little bro, even if you're a girl. All right. You ever notice how every good job today feels like winning the lottery? Except the jackpot is just health insurance and maybe 2 weeks of PTO. Capitalism swore if we worked hard, we'd climb the ladder. Instead, the ladder's gone, replaced by a Roomba that just sucked up your resume, and now the only thing climbing is rent. Well, that's a pretty cold intro for this video, but it is what it is. I mean, the applicant tracking software isn't there to benefit you in any conceivable way. That's why people are able to put in hundreds of resumes, sometimes a day, and they don't go anywhere. Because unless you've already been doing that job, they don't think you have the experience to do that job. It's not like the olden days where they'd look at your college degree, look at you, and take a chance. Corporations don't do that anymore. They don't want to train you. They don't want to offer you any support. It's you come in, you can do the job, and if you can do the job, you get to stay. If you can't, you're out in 5 to 10 days. It's that simple. Investment in workers is long gone. And the hard part about that is that if you do go to a trade school or a conventional 4-year university, they're not going to train you to do that job. Education, in the way that I received it with my 4 liberal arts degrees, is a general education that's supposed to make you adaptable to the workplace. That's why they don't just allow you to do your psychology stuff. They want you to be a well-rounded individual. Math, literature, humanities. There's only 45 hours required to get a bachelor's degree, at least at ASU, in any major that you want. But you have to have 130 hours in order to graduate with all the other crap, with a language requirement for some reason for a language you're never going to speak. But that's what universities are. They provide well-rounded, educated individuals. But when you get to the workplace, where you join the workforce and you realize that that training didn't mean anything, it doesn't fit anymore. The education system that we currently have was designed hundreds of years ago for people who didn't need money. And that's really what it came down to. Education used to be just for rich people. And of course, poor people started realizing that, hey, if I don't have access to education, how am I supposed to be rich? And that was the mentality behind college. Well, that's not how it was designed. If you can go and spend 4 years learning about philosophy or literature or poetry or pottery or sculpting, you're a wealthy person. Today's people are expecting to have the same outcomes. And when they fail, well, they're like me, wondering what happened. Imagine throwing a single loaf of bread into a stadium full of starving people and calling it a feast. That's what the government just did with its jobs report. They'll smile on CNBC and say the market is still strong, while you're wondering if Target will at least call you back for an interview. The dark punchline, these numbers don't represent opportunity. They represent a funeral for the middle class. And that is so true. Because when ordinary people need a minimum wage job and you go and you apply to, let's say, Starbucks, and they look at you, a 40-year-old man with 20 some years of experience as a sales manager, they're not going to give you opportunity. They don't see a person who's going to show up every day and smile at the customers, make lattes, and pretend that they're happy. When a person like that falls out of a good job has to go and take whatever job they have to, whether it's at an adult shop, cleaning, God only knows what, off the floors, they don't want your 25 years of experience. They don't want your education. This country was built on workers, not thinkers. So, in a sense, a lot of the people that are overeducated, like myself, have priced ourselves right out of the jobs that are available on the current market. I would say that 99% of jobs that I've applied to in my entire life, I don't put any education on. Why? Because they're going to discriminate against you because of your education. Even once you start that uneducated job, by the way that you talk, they can tell that you're not one of them. The uneducated, the high school dropouts, they know right away that you're going to stand out in any job that you go to because your well-rounded education gave you something that those people don't have, uneducation. And unfortunately, in a society that's this polarized, remember what was said prior to this current election. I love the uneducated. Why? Because they don't think, they do. They're the people that have made things possible the way that they currently are. And the worst part is those people, those same people, are the people that need the most help. They need Medicaid. They need food stamps. They need Section 8 housing, all for one reason. They're uneducated. But the catch-22 now is that even the educated people can't compete with the same job pool that the uneducated people are in and the educated people are in now. We're all fighting for that same job, making hamburgers at McDonald's. Whether you like it or not, there isn't enough good jobs in our society to make certain that only the educated people get the good ones. In fact, yesterday I was talking to one of the sales trainers at McDonald's, and she said, my entire family has good jobs right now because I help all of them. And she's an expert resume writer and says she can get anyone working anywhere. And I was just like, there are people who have been looking for years. And she's like, well, it's probably their resume. Go figure. There are people like that out there that regardless of what you tell them, regardless of how the economy is doing, they don't care. They live in a world of toxic positivity. 4 years of specialized education, internships, luxury brand resumes, and the paycheck of a high schooler working at a drive-thru. That's not a career ladder. That's a hamster wheel with student loan debt, duct tape to your back end. The contradiction burns. Society told you to invest in yourself, but all you really bought was a front row seat to your own economic downfall. I would have said economic funeral, but downfall, I guess, sounds a little bit better. So what generated this part of this script was in his video, he had an example of a girl that just finished going to school. She got a psychology degree just like myself. And at the end of her education, at the end of her 4 years of education, she was working in a school system, and the school offered her a $15 an hour job with no benefits, no paid days off. And she was wondering, it's like, I just spent all this money on my education. I'm going to get a job for someone that's uneducated. But here's the caveat. In order to get that $15 job, she had to have a college degree, which was insane because a lot of people ask me, it's like, MillennialSteam, how did you spend half your life working for the minimum wage at the university with no benefits and falling into situations in which you had no place to live? It's simple. Universities have these university jobs for students. They come with no benefits, no raises, no days off, nothing but hourly work. And some of them are even stuck at 20 hours a week because they don't want students spending too much time at work. Well, what they don't tell you about that is if you're not spending 40 hours a week at work or more, how are you supposed to pay your bills even while you're going to school? Because school is a full-time job, but you still have all of the normal bills of a person that's trying to survive. And so you're trying to juggle a life of school and a life of being a normal adult that has to pay their bills or else you fall onto tough times. Well, that was the struggle. That's how I spent 20 years of my life trying to figure out how I was supposed to not get sick because you don't have health benefits. And anytime that you get sick and you don't have health benefits, you're going to have to go to the student health center, which will take anyone, but stick you with the medical bill that will prevent you from signing up for classes in the next semester. So it's not like you don't have access to it. It's just a trap to get sick. And if you've ever been sick in a situation where your employer doesn't offer you health benefits, you've just got to work through it. Like I've had bronchitis now for 4 or 5 weeks. Before I started making this video, I was coughing up a storm of stuff that was still inside of my lungs. Why? I don't have the time. I don't have the money to go to the doctor. And here's the irony of this. I have medical insurance and I still can't afford to go to the doctor. That's the world that we live in right now. Either you don't have it, you do have it, or you don't have time. And that's nearly can be reused into other situations, like people who have kids but need daycare, but the daycare would cost as much money as they would make working in that full month. Because daycare isn't cheap, especially if you have multiple kids. If you're sending 3 kids to daycare, imagine that costing you $800. And $800 is what you make per week at a halfway decent job. It's not worth it. So many people are finding themselves in scenarios in which they just can't win. Working isn't a guarantee that you will be able to live or even survive. All working does is make certain that corporations continue to have record profits year after year, making certain that they can exploit the living crap out of the labor at their disposal. But when you, as an adult, as an educated person or uneducated person, try to figure out how you're supposed to live on a $16 an hour job, you're left scratching your head. Because at that point, the government says you're too rich for food stamps, too rich for Medicaid, and too rich for housing assistance. But are you? No, you're not. It's just that they have to set the standard so low for government benefits because if not, nearly everyone in this country would qualify for them because of the wages being so low. So yeah, robots are eating the middle class alive, and the elites call it progress. While you call it skipping dinner, they'll automate your paycheck, your future, your sanity, and then sell you an AI life coach to cope with it. The cruel irony, the one thing they can't automate is your suffering. Only you get to live that part. Welcome to the collapse, folks. Tip your algorithm on the way out. In this episode of The Epic Economist, he spends several sections of it talking about how AI is already taken over the lower tier jobs in nearly every field. He has a section where a lady tells people don't go into medicine because AI has taken the entry level medical jobs. In technology, AI has taken over a lot of those jobs because AI does help desk. When you call IT and you get a help desk, it's not usually a person, it's a robot. And it sits there in a loop asking you over and over again to tell you what's wrong, select from a menu. When you call FedEx, their entire phone setup is based on AI. When you call certain companies, like I had to call Adobe to try to figure out a license, I couldn't talk to a regular person. And these are jobs that millions of people needed in order to get their foot in the door. So by taking away the bottom crust of jobs, and now only allowing middle and upper tier jobs to exist, that excludes every single person that's coming out of college and trying to find a job. It's also going to exclude the people that fall out of a mid-level job and then need to get back into another job that's at entry level. Like if you have to change careers, let's say from tech to finance, and you need to get an introductory finance job. Well, chances are there's an AI bot already doing that job. That's going to leave so many people behind that's why he calls it the collapse of the job economy, because there are less and less jobs out there that are real. I've applied to hundreds of jobs, and I was just telling someone that I haven't gotten a single call back. Why? Because most of those jobs aren't real. And when you apply to so many jobs, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people applying to those same jobs and not getting jobs, something doesn't smell right. And it smells worse than my dirty gym shoe socks, excuse me. All right, I got to get ready to go to the Death Star. I will talk to you guys later.